Chapter 23. The evening light was punctuated by a roaring fire of collected driftwood from the beach and deadwood from the forest. Obsidian seemed to be careful to collect a lot of wood. He had built the largest fire any of them had ever seen before.
Will she come up on the beach?
Obsidian asked to no one in particular.
I hope so. I want to see how any creature could be larger than you.
Joe said, chuckling to himself.
It's a rumor until proven true.
Obsidian remarked, arranging the firewood into driftwood and deadwood piles. Earlier that afternoon, Alter flew into the cave, unperturbed by the guards. However, when she entered the bedroom chamber, it was empty. She flew out to the beach, gliding along the shores, no sign of the beast. She decided to ascend to the altitude of her companion, Oriel.
Change of plans,
Alter announced.
She's not here.
Shall we return?
Let's find a good spot to observe from and wait.
Ariel knew a good spot and led Alter to the same tree of her fateful resurrection.
Is this the same spot you were in the first time?
Oriel nodded.
And you were resurrected?
Oriel nodded, unsure how she could respond.
What's it like?
It's hard to explain. Each time is different.
Do you remember them all?
Alter asked.
Not all, no. It would be too many. But we remember the last 20 or so.
How many do you think you've had?
I don't know.
So you don't know when you were even born?
Oriel shook her head.
None of us do we? Do you know when you were first born as a consciousness with your unique identity, before you had creature experience?
Alter shook her head.
I suppose not.
Well, it's the same for us. It's just that we stay in the same form, unlike you and most others.
Do you wish you could change form?
More than anything, that is the dream of my kind. We want to experience a rebirth where we reawaken into a different creature. But I guess that is not to be for our species.
There was a long silence. Alter cackled as though she was clearing her throat, but as a seagull it sounded more like a strange, guttural quake.
When you die, do you ever see or speak to anyone?
The last time, in this very tree, on this very branch, I spoke to someone. I thought, at the time, it was God, but I don't really remember this sphere of light announcing itself to me as God. The whole conversation has kind of slipped from my memory. I only remember that it was an intelligence beyond mine, larger than this planet or universe. I remember feeling like I was an atom in its body, and somehow I was playing a role that I didn't understand, because it was not understandable in terms of my mind. It could only be understood when I was in the mind of this being or God.
And did you get into this mind of God?
No, I couldn't because I'm a phoenix, and I must be reborn again and again and again. It is our fate. Our destiny is to form a circle, and perhaps when the line is joined, that's when we become something different, something new. That's what we believe, yet proof is like smoke. You cannot contain its form. There have been legends of some of us disappearing, but now that I am in this world, I believe the disappearance is this.
She put her wings up to the sky.
We're simply recycled into a parallel world. Maybe even we live in these parallel worlds all the time, but our identities are locked into seeing only one at a time. Perhaps randomly a hand moves a dial and our attention switches to another frequency or world.
She shook her head, her voice suddenly a mere whisper.
I really don't know.
I am in one world at a time,
Alter said.
I can transform into any creature that is in our library of forms. We call them form archetypes. Once one of us successfully creates a transformation portal into a new creature's form, it is added to our library, and then any of my kind can shapeshift into this form. It is automatic. No one thinks about it. It is just a natural part of being a servitor, like resurrection is a natural part of being a phoenix.
Alter paused, remembering to scan the shoreline and beaches for any sign of the beast.
As far as I know, we live one extraordinarily long life, and in the course of this long life, we experience thousands of different forms. We sometimes can forget who we actually are. I have met some of my kind in my previous world who believed they were a beetle or a seagull like this,
She said, pointing to her chest.
and you could not convince them that they were actually a servitor. They had forgotten how to transform into their original form, simply because they had transformed so many times they lost their core identity. We called this condition central identity loss. Of all of the conditions a servitor could experience, this was the one most feared.
Why?
It wasn't about happiness because servitors with central identity loss could still experience happiness, even joy. It was the choice to relinquish their true identity. They grew weary of the constant transitions, tired of embodying new or different forms that demanded immense effort. Each transformation necessitated learning the capacities of the new body to live and survive, forcing them to adapt to its limitations or abilities. It's a challenging adjustment to continually acquaint oneself with the constraints and requirements of a new form. For instance, when I revert to my servitor form, I lose the ability to fly, and I keenly feel that limitation. It's almost painful to be confined to the ground. And that's just one example. Consider being able to transform into thousands of different creatures. It's a peculiar experience to adapt to such a diverse array of life expressions in space-time.
What is your favorite form?
Oriel asked.
It is always my original form.
Why?
It was how I was born, how I came into my world, and for the first 7 years of my life, I am nothing but that. I may see my older siblings, parents, teachers, and so on shape-shifting into any number of different creatures, but I cannot until my 7th birthday.
It's not allowed.
Biologically speaking, it is how we, as a species, evolved. To make sure our youngest gets settled into the body we are born into before we are able to shapeshift. This ensures that central identity loss is minimized in our species.
What was the first creature you shapeshifted into?
Alter closed her eyes.
I was watching an eagle glide across a blue sky with the sun on its wings, never moving its wings, just hovering in the updrafts of a silent wind, and something stirred in me. I was sensing my body moving into that thought of the eagle that I had just been admiring. I felt myself becoming that eagle. Well, not specifically that eagle, but one very much like it. The next thing I knew, I had completely transitioned into an eagle. I could sense the world as an eagle. My eyesight was sharp, and the feeling of my wings was one of sheer power. I would grip the ground or branches with talons of immense strength. I could drift on the wind effortlessly. It was a feeling of freedom, but as soon as I felt these things, I also felt fear, a paralyzing fear.
Why?
Oriel asked.
Because I knew I could get lost in it. I could lose my sense of who I was as a servitor. I had family, friends, and teachers, and I couldn't imagine giving those up. But the experience as an eagle was so powerful that I feared I might be tempted to give it all up.
How long can you stay in a new body?
We are taught never to learn survival skills in the new body, that we survive only as servitors.
So you only eat or sleep or reproduce when you are a servitor.
Yes, this is our strictest rule as a species. Everyone is taught this from the earliest age one can learn. Our entire culture teaches this, but sometimes you find a creature that is so compelling that you want to learn more about its ways of survival.
But that takes time, so back to my question. How long can you stay in a new body?
If you break the rules and learn how to survive in that new body, you can stay until you die in that new body.
So, you adopt the lifespan, the entire life of that new creature, and if you die as that new creature from, let's say a predator eats you, then you are dead. No resurrection?
No resurrection.
Alter echoed.
At least not as the servitor you were before, but I should tell you that we have myths about what happens if one dies in another body.
And?
We are brought to the place of mystery where that species is collected, its experiences downloaded, its memories revealed for new learnings, its purpose more revealed, and generally, it is reborn as if it had always lived as the species in which we died. This was another reason not to stay in another creature's body.
Why?
Because servitors regard ourselves as the highest of all creatures, and if I died as a beetle, for example, I would be regarded by the universal mind as a beetle, and I would be treated in the afterlife as a beetle. I would essentially devolve in my journey. I would have to relearn everything that had taken me to the heights of embodiment as a servitor. That fear flooded me as I was an eagle, so much so that I crashed upon the ground. Injured as I was, I managed to remember how to transition back into a servitor, but had I not, there were predators already stalking my injured eagle body.
You mean if you had stayed as an injured eagle, a predator would have eaten you?
Yes, exactly that. When I finally transformed back into my original self, there was a pack of indiges only a short distance away that was closing on my position. I was completely encircled by them. However, as I re-emerged as a servitor, they ran away in fear.
Is that her?
Oriole said, pointing to a blob of pinkish gold waddling up the beach with some difficulty.
That's her,
Alter intoned.
I'll be right back.
Alter, in her seagull garb, flew right above the beast, hovering only a few meters above.
I met with your obsidian and his group of like-minded interlopers, and they have agreed, with great interest, to meet with you.
The beast stopped and looked up at Alter.
Tonight, then. Where?
I will guide you to the place,
Alter replied.
Wait for me on this beach at sunset.
And Obsidian will be there.
Oh, yes.
He was open to meeting me?
Very much so, and if I may say, he was excited to do so.
Very good. It seems he may be more civil than the majority of his creatures. I will be here.
With that, the beast turned and continued her laborious journey to her cave. Alter returned to the tree branch where she had left Oriole.
We can return and then come back, or we can stay here and wait for the sunset to begin.
The winds will calm down if we wait.
Oriole said.
Then wait it is.